In spring of 1852, a license was granted to John Elder as well as to George Vaughan in 1853 to operate ferry services at Ophir, California, now known as Oroville, California. These two services remained in operation until the first bridge was built here. This is why the road leading down to the Feather River Nature Center is called Old Ferry Road. In 1872, a covered bridge was built costing $18,000. The bridge connecting Oroville to the towns in the north was considered to be of such great importance that the citizens of Chico and John Bidwell joined the citizens of Oroville in a subscription campaign to raise the necessary funds for the construction of the bridge, which would prove a challenge due to the width of the river. The covered bridge was supported by iron cylinders filled with concrete. This bridge survived until 1881, when floodwaters carried away the northern span, leaving the southern span connected to the Oroville side. The northern span was replaced using the same supports but with steel rods to secure massive wooden timbers. The southern span kept its cover. This half-covered, half-steel frame bridge lasted 23 years. In 1904, the northern span collapsed, so an entirely new steel truss bridge was built similar to the style of the historic Table Mountain Bridge today. After the flood of 1907, an emergency ferry service was hastily provided by Otto Peter until a new bridge was built. The historic Table Mountain Bridge was built in 1907, costing $54,000. In celebrating the new bridge, Oroville sponsored the first of 5 water carnivals on July 4, 1909. The Oroville Water Carnivals made a grand display on the Feather River. This bridge was lit up, and from the center pier, which I like to call August Island, a fountain spouted high into the air, and in falling, the fountain reflected the many lights from the bridge, which was lit in red, white, and blue lights. Further down the island was a huge maypole topped with the statue of an eagle, which was lit up along with strands of lights connecting to a circular platform below. The Oroville band played from the island, while the Chico band played from the platform. The river itself glowed for a mile from many red and blue submerged lights. At 8:30, fireworks were launched over the new bridge, and a parade of equally well-lit barges floated downstream. Aboard these decorated floats were more musicians and dancers, led by an illuminated serpent. 2 royal floats appeared from behind a star 50 feet in diameter. The King of the Valley and the Queen of the Mountain marched from their barge to a coronation throne where the mayor presented them with keys to the city. In 1910, the leading candidates for king were Major Albert Jones and C.E. Porter. Neither one wanted to defeat the other, so they hatched a plot to pool votes and elect R. Leo Vandernalen. Vandernalen heard of this and went to the Superior Court of Butte County, and he got a real active injunction court ordering Major Albert Jones, C.E. Porter, and the Carnival Committee from making him king. I find the story of the Queen even more interesting. The San Francisco Call newspaper wrote the headline, "Descendant of the Habsburg to rule Carnival." It would come to light that Beatrice Pryor, wife of an Oroville electrician, elected queen over the 1910 Oroville Water Carnival, and known by the press as Queen Bee, was the great-granddaughter of Princess Sophia of the Habsburg royal family. The paper added that in 7 centuries the Habsburgs have ruled over everything from the Holy Roman Empire to the Oroville Water Carnival. The historic flood of 1907 filled the streets of downtown Oroville, making Montgomery Street look like a scene in Venice. This spelt doom for the short-lived steel bridge built in 1904 after the northern span of the half-covered bridge collapsed. On March 18th, after being battered all day by logs and debris, at around 11 p.m., a huge floating section of another bridge that had dislodged from upstream struck the bridge that was here at the time. The force from the impact tore out a whole section, and 20 minutes later, the 2 remaining spans collapsed, with the water running higher than the abutments. This is what remains of the old pillars that supported the bridge just below the upper Thermalito bridges near the fish hatchery. Downstream, the new Northern Electric Railroad bridge was taken out by a gold dredger. Usually in preparation of high water, gold dredgers would run in a circle, creating a small levee around them, but the 1907 flood's destruction was unpredictable and toppled some of the huge machines and tossed them downriver. From here you can see the Bathhouse Museum and Feather River Nature Center. The bathhouse was built in 1935 as part of the Feather River Auto Park, one of Oroville's earliest city parks. Designed by past Oroville city planner Sam Norris, the purpose was to give people a place to rinse off after swimming in the river. In that time, this portion of the river had wide beaches. After a flood in 1937 washed out the beaches and made this quiet bend of the river more swift, the bathhouse quickly became abandoned. It would decay for decades, even losing its roof. It was in 1996 that a group led by Peter Mackey and Rex Burris, the Friends of the Bathhouse, put in the hard work to clean up the grounds and turn the bathhouse into the Feather River Nature Center, completing the project in 1998. Up the hill from the bathhouse is the Griggs home, built in 1921 for Dr. Charles Griggs and his wife Vida. Dr. Griggs was the youngest physician in Oroville during the 1918 influenza epidemic. At 34 years old, he was often the only doctor in town able to make house calls. Vida had an art studio where she could paint by the windows overlooking the river. She often referred to the property as Breeze Hill, originally 25 acres with steps leading down to the beach. In 1946, the Griggs back patio and its view of the Feather River were featured on the cover of Sunset magazine. In 1934, Dr. Griggs was called to the Colony of the Saints, the home of a local cult known as the Isaiahs. The leader of the colony, named Brother Isaiah, had claimed to be immortal. However, Dr. Griggs had been supplying Brother Isaiah with medications for unknown ailments nearing the time of his death. Dr. Griggs signed the death certificate and instructed the 40 remaining followers to bury Brother Isaiah. Dr. Griggs played the piano, and in 1938, he invited a friend named Thomas Wiggle to visit Oroville and be his guest here at his home. Thomas Wiggle was playing the violin for the Detroit Symphony, and during the doctor's spare time, the two collaborated in writing and arranging duets. Tom moved into a 2-story home on 2nd Avenue across from Rotary Park, where he taught music lessons. In 1941, Wiggle returned to Detroit. He got married, and after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, he entered the Army, telling a local piano teacher that he had hoped to return to Oroville after the war and open a music school with her. While serving on the Italian front, Tom Wiggle was fatally wounded while leading the successful capture of a Nazi stronghold. When President Roosevelt awarded Tom the nation's highest honor, Detroit newspapers proclaimed him the city's greatest hero. Subsequently, the U.S. Army named one of its seagoing vessels after him. Next to the historic Table Mountain Bridge near Bossburger is the Feather River Craig Apartments, built in 1938. Behind the Craigs, about where the roundabout is today, was the home of Frank Danforth, one of Oroville's earliest historians. He passed on his love for history to his daughter, Florence Danforth Boyle, who opened the Pioneer Museum in 1932. The Rotary Club of Oroville plans to honor the legacy of the bridge with the permanent installation of modern, full-color, programmable lighting. The club states that regularly scheduled light shows will give locals and tourists alike a reason to look at, linger in, and love Oroville, our downtown, and the natural beauty of the Feather River. Installation of the lights on the historic bridge will begin in 2024. You can get involved and donate or dedicate a light to a loved one by visiting orovillelights.com.